This is a video about how to clean carburetors on a CBR600. I had high hopes that I'd be able to clean these carburetors, get them put back together, reinstall the assembly on the machine and fire it up in this video, but I've never worked on one of these machines before, and it takes a long time to clean 4 carburetors. I've been out here for hours, and the carburetors weren't very dirty. I'm not looking a gift scenario in the mouth as far as how beautiful these carburetors were compared to how crunchy, rusty, and grimy they could have been. But it took a long time. I do a thorough job. Ed will appreciate that. But what we'll do in this video is show you all how I clean a carburetor. I've done 3 of them already. 1, 2, 3. Haven't messed with this one very much. So together, we'll look at it and clean it. First thing to do is take out this pin, remove the float and the needle valve. This is in good condition. I can tell it's in good condition because when I put gas through this fuel inlet, it doesn't come out here unless I lift the float. I can show you that. Dribble a little bit of gas in here. No fuel is coming out of there right now, but if I raise the float. So you're going to call me a liar? Well, there it is. Open, fuel comes out, close, no fuel. But I'll take it out just to show you the process. When you remove this pin, it should not take any pressure. Do not force this pin out. If it is stuck, I've dealt with stuck pins before. Be very careful, because if you go after this with a hammer and punch, you will break off these columns that hold the pin and ruin the carburetor. The best method is to soak it in a lubricant or penetrant for as long as you have the patience for, and then very gently grab the pin, or rather, I'll show you, I'll demonstrate here because I've broken carburetors and I've been successful at this. Let's say you've got a pin that's frozen in place right there. What a feller needs to do is get some pliers, which I'll grab from over here. We were talking about death a few nights ago, incidentally. Do you ever feel jealous of dead people? I do. They jumped. They made the jump.
They might have been pushed.
They may have been pushed, but they did it. Might be a relief. Wow. So, what you do if you've got a stuck pin is use the pliers like this and squeeze to push, but just a little bit, because by pushing here, you're also pushing over here. So if you pinch on this side, you're not putting stress on this standoff. What would you call that? Post? Post. You wouldn't be putting pressure on this post because you're just squeezing, but you are putting pressure over here. So if you can tell which side it's stuck on, that's the side you want to squeeze. If it's stuck over here, squeeze here. That way it doesn't put pressure on this side. Chances are you'll break it.
Oh.
So that's all about the float pin. Luckily this one slid right out. Next, we look in here, the needle seat, make sure that's clean. Look at the needle. Make sure the rubber isn't deformed. Beautiful needle valve. And then reassemble. Next item to look at, the pilot jet. This is the smallest hole down here. All three of these were clogged up. I believe that's why the engine didn't run. Because it's the tiniest hole, it's the first usually to get clogged up. Just a little bit of fuel that sits for anywhere from a few months to a year will gum up and clog the pilot jet. If you're not squeamish, you can just blow on it. It's clogged. The method I use for cleaning these is grabbing some stranded copper wire, and depending on how big the jet is, try to just get through it with a single strand or a couple strands twisted together. The more strands you have twisted together, the more strength it has, and it won't crumple on itself. But the pilot jet sometimes is only big enough for one strand. So I know 2 strands will fit through this one. This is a number 40. If you have a CBR600, that's the stock size. And I had another glove over here.
Is this it?
That one has a remainder of the paint from that DR gas tank, and I don't want to clean carburetor jets with a glove that has paint on it, because paint will clog up pilot jets just as much as old gas. Do you ever feel jealous of the dead?
It's a personal question for me because I would need to account for some of my religious beliefs, which I don't really have any, but I suppose no, because I acknowledge the concept of reincarnation and lean toward that.
You're not envious of the dead?
No.
I don't go around feeling jealous of the dead so much that it affects my day, but the feeling passes through sometimes. Here's the process for cleaning a pilot jet. You're welcome to leave a timestamp in the comments for this part. I won't stop you. First thing we do is we wet the pilot jet with carburetor cleaner. Be careful with carburetor cleaner. It can deteriorate rubber. But its deterioration property, that harsh cleaning property, is also what makes it useful for cleaning out old garbage in jets. So if you run this stuff through the carburetor where there might be rubber, chase it with some gasoline right afterwards. That's what I did here and what you'll see me do in a few minutes. So we'll wet the pilot jet with carburetor cleaner. That went through. That might have gone through already. Watch the end. I may have just cleaned this without trying. I can't tell yet, but the process is you get it wet and then start working the wire through.
I think death is probably like falling asleep. But just like we don't know what it's like before we were born, we're not going to know what it's like when we're dead.
There we are. So this one was easy. And that's a little bit of a shame because I wanted to show you what it took to get a really crusty one.
You should have saved number 2. I felt like carburetor number 2 was the worst.
You're a sage. Let's see, I'm turned around here. This one. This was the worst. I bent lots of wires trying to clean out this pilot jet.
Did they crumple?
They crumpled. The reason I use copper wire is because it's not going to enlarge the jet. It's not going to scratch anything because it's soft like brass. A lot of fellers talk about using a wire brush bristle or steel wire. It doesn't crumple, it doesn't bend like copper, but you also risk deforming the jet. If that matters to you, you may not care.
Oh, I don't.
You say, it's a hole. Stop complaining. It's a hole. Gas goes through it. Close the book. Good night.
Use that wire brush.
So now when I spray this through, we get a nice stream out the front side. You see that?
Yeah. You're pretty frisky tonight.
Well, I'm just talking to my friends, and I'll be honest with you. Why not? I still get nervous when it's time to do a video. And I need to get away from that. It's not like I'm making a good living from it. What are we doing out here anyway? But I still get nervous. It's not even live. And that's not a good place to be in if you want to act naturally and you want to be engaging to people. Once you blow some carburetor cleaner through the pilot jet, don't talk too much after you do this because the carburetor cleaner will evaporate. But the process is get it wet with carburetor cleaner, run some through it, and then run over to the air compressor and blow it out with compressed air. And I'll unplug this so we don't blow out your ears. Compressed air through both sides. And then look through it. If you can get a focus on that, you'll see daylight.
Hold on. Oh, well, I got it. It's not focused, but there it is.
Fluorescent light. At this point, make sure the hole you see is a circle. If it's not, either your eyesight is questionable, like mine, or there's still a little bit of trash in there that you need to clean out. This is ready to go. So, floating needle look good. Pilot jet looks good. The next thing I did with these carburetors was run a little bit of gas into the pilot jet hole. What this does is flushes out all of the pilot jet passageways from the float bowl down into the throat of the carburetor.
Oh, I almost have a joke there, but I can't remember it. If you were a band, what would you be?
Oh, I don't know.
99 Pilots?
21 pilots, like blackjack. 21
Okay.
pilots, okay. So
Well, you would be 99 because 21 isn't enough.
now we'll blow some compressed air through this hole. This probably isn't necessary on these carburetors because I can tell that the contamination from that old gas did not get very far up into the carburetors. If we look at the pilot jet, you can see a little bit of discoloration here, but once you get up higher, it's still clean. So anything above this point is likely clean. Downwardly from this point, from our point of view. You understand?
Yeah.
I'll put that back in a little while. Next is the main jet. The pilot jet meters fuel at the low RPM. The main jet meters fuel from about quarter throttle on up. Pilot jet is still functioning throughout that range as well, but it's not the main fuel supplier. Oh, I have the right size for this. This is a much bigger hole. These are rarely clogged unless you have something that you dragged out of the bottom of the ocean. That hole usually isn't clogged. Can you see that?
No. Are you sure? Can you see through that?
Yeah, it's a huge hole.
Well, I can't see
Here,
through
well,
it.
focus on my hand, and then I'll take the...
Oh, there we go.
So that's clear, but just to go through the motions, I'll do the same thing with this jet as I did with the pilot jet. Carburetor cleaner first, then air. I'm calling this the main jet, but the main jet is just this piece on the top with the screwdriver head. The hex head thing from here down, I call that the emulsion tube. You call it whatever you want. But I don't need to separate these. I can clean it just as well when they're together. Carburetor cleaner through both ways. It's important to make sure these holes on the sides are also clear. They are. And here too, you can see we've got some nastiness up here a little bit, but about right there is where it stops. So anything from this point up should be clean in the carburetor. That's really going to mess with my audio. See, if I think about the video, I can't think about what I'm doing. And I was thinking about the video there, how I'll edit that audio. I won't edit it much. So this is the main jet. It's all cleaned out. We'll run some fuel down here. I'm not even going to blow that one out. You can probably see down there how clean it is.
Which one?
The big hole here. If you can't, just trust me.
Seems fine.
It's clean. The last thing to do down here is clean out this tube, which is what draws fuel for the choke. All four of these were clogged. So I imagine it will start a lot easier now than it did. Oh, and I also figured out why the choke bracket wasn't activating the chokes earlier. The number 3 choke was stuck. See how this works when it slides? It pulls 1, 2, 3, 4 chokes all at once. Mm-hmm. This one was stuck, so none of them could work. But as I was cleaning these and gas was everywhere, it loosened itself up, which was nice. So for these, I'm running about a 2-inch wire through here. I think that's long enough. See that? It should go all the way down there. I may have done this one already. I told you that I didn't clean this carburetor, but I think I did clean the choke pull-up tube. So that's all there is to do here. I'll put all this back together that I took apart. Tomorrow, I'll put this back on the motorcycle. We'll see if it fires up. I talked to Ed about these manifolds that I told you were brittle. That's what I told him. And he said it's up to me. If I think that they'll work, we can run them. But he's not opposed to buying new ones either. I found that if I heat them up just a little bit with the heat gun, they soften up. They loosen up again. That's what I did with this one. You remember it was stuck on the bike?
Yeah.
Gave it just a little bit of heat, and it came off. And then I was able to put it on here without trouble. So we'll be quick when we install it. We'll heat these up, pop it right on there, and I'll look like a professional. If any of you guys watching know your way around CBR600, if you have done this before and you're an expert, just keep your thoughts to yourself. I'll get this all put back together, make sure I didn't have anything else important to talk to you about. A toothpick is a great tool for cleaning out carburetors, especially things like the float bowl. I also cleaned the float bowls on all 4 carburetors. These weren't bad. Any of you veterans to carburetor cleaning know this is a gift. Not corroded, no pitting. What a toothpick is good for is getting into little places like this. See that? Cleans it right out. And similarly to wire, a toothpick is better than a dental tool or a screwdriver because it doesn't scratch anything. That's important, especially when you're working on a customer machine. I'll put this together and I'll leave out any more philosophical talk. Don't want your head to implode upon itself. Tomorrow, we'll get it back on the machine and see if it runs. If you're interested in watching yesterday's video, I'll put a link to it up on the screen. And if you'd like to see what happens next, I'll put a link to that video up, tomorrow's video, on the screen as well. Thanks for watching.